Welcome back to Dev Game Club, weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who is invading the world of the guilty as a spirit of vengeance.
Tim Longo. Am I?
I think that's the sort of guy you are.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
you would do that.
Yeah.
Have you ever squeezed the Dark Orb?
Oh, you're talking about that. So you're the one you're talking about the murderer of the firekeeper?
Correct.
No, I haven't figured out how to activate it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah, you haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
I was weird when you asked about this. We, of course, are talking about Dark Souls. When you asked about this, I guess, over the weekend, you were like, yeah, what's the deal with that? I was like, yeah, I've activated it a bunch of times, and every time I have, I've died, which is true. I've done it maybe 3 times. I've also had it, pulse to let me know where to use it multiple times.
Oh.
Which might not be available to me anymore. It didn't even occur to me. Dang it. Oh, man, so much. All right, before we get to any of that, I want to remind folks, just because I said I would, that this weekend is Drunk Souls.
Yes.
From 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight, or until he runs out of Estus. Listener Artemage is doing Drunk Souls for his local children's hospital, which I think is up in Ontario, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, he's Artemage. I think he's Artemage84 on Twitch. Artemage, if you tweet at me this week, I will at Dev Game Club. I will remember to retweet it. But shout out to folks who want to go watch somebody imperil their liver for the benefit of a children's hospital, sending mixed messages there, I suppose. You may do so. So I wanted to get that out there because this is the last cast before that happens.
Yes.
Anyway.
Good call. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's set the stage. Here's where we are.
Okay.
You are how many hours into the game?
Almost 40 hours only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said you are actually, last week you thought you were at level 50. You were actually a little lower than that.
Yeah. So now I'm like 53 or something around there, 52, 53. So I actually was at 46 last week and thought I was higher. So
Gotcha. Yeah. So last week I was at 115 hours. So I am now at 154 hours.
Jeez, man.
I decided I needed another job. So I put in basically 40 hours, and I am now from a level 114 last week. I am now level 160.
Yeah, man. What is so like, can you describe to me from a conceptual standpoint, if you can, maybe it's too hard conceptually, maybe you'd have to get to specific, but like the difference between 114 and 160, whatever, like how does it feel? Like what is the appreciable difference?
The big thing is I have more options, right? So what happens is, so for folks in the know, I have 3 different, so I've stuck with hammers. There was a whole diversion there where I got Quilag's Fury Sword and was like, well, maybe I should try Dex, and leveled up my Dex a bunch, which was at like 8 and it had to be at least 20. So there was 12 levels right there. But then I was like, well, yeah, but now I'm just at the minimum. What does it really feel like? So I had to put in another, 8 or 10 levels or whatever of just Dex. Be like, well, okay, yeah, but how should it really play? If I got a little higher. And I didn't love it. So I was like, oh, okay. So there was like,
yeah, there's levels there.
20 levels of just like, experimenting. Like, how is this going to feel? And, I just kind of sit here and I zone out and I listen to podcasts. And when I'm leveling, like when I'm doing stuff that involves narrative, I don't, but when I'm just like purely gathering souls to level again and again and again, I sit there, grind, and just kind of zone out and don't really pay attention to what's going on. Anyway, so now what it's given me is I have 3 main hammers. I have a divine mace. I have a occult club. Both of those are maximum. They're both at +5. I think that's the max for both. And then I have a special ascended weapon, which is the the hammer of Smaug. I don't know what his name is.
It's pronounced Smaug.
Smaug. Anyway, that guy. No,
I was making a Hobbit joke, but
yeah, I know. But it probably is. It's spelled like Slough, so it probably like the place in.
So wait, you said you had something that said a max of +5. So some things can't go above +5, and some things can.
So you can ascend you get something to +5,
and then you ascend it, or you choose then it can what to do with it.
You can make it go to +10.
Right.
At that point, and then you could choose to make it a divine weapon. I don't know if that's in every case, but you need to have found a divine ember to give to the blacksmith in Undead Parish. Mm-hmm. Or in the case of the occult, I actually found something that allows me. There's another type of ember that lets you take a divine weapon and make it an occult weapon. Occult weapons are apparently better for slaying gods? ? That's what I read.
No, you're fighting gods now. That's okay.
Well, yes. I think that's what the Lord souls are that I need to fill the Lord vessel with. I think they're effectively God caliber critters. I fought and killed one of those. Let me tell you about descending down into the lava, crossing the lava, just sloshing around through the lava to get to the bed of chaos. Maybe someday these words will mean something to you, Tim, but right now...
You had to walk through the lava?
Yes.
Oh, my.
Yes. Solaire and I defeated the fire centipede-looking thing, which I got to tell you, didn't really look like a centipede of any kind that I've ever seen. It looked like a really abstract horror with lots of limbs of different things. But yes, definitely fiery. And that thing dropped a ring, which I needed to wear, which I didn't realize the first time I tried to go through. I'm like, well, clearly there's an opening over there I need to go through. Let me just roll through and die in the lava. Luckily, I'd already taken all those souls and gone and leveled up and come back. Anyway, because that's what I do.
I think you can see the centipede. I saw some crazy thing on the side of the building down there. Or it's when you're fighting the Capra demons, there's something like clinging to the side of the cavern.
Be. Yes.
It looks kind of centipede-like.
You're right. That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. That makes sense because its cutscene introduces it coming down from above. And you've gone lower at that point. Yeah. So that makes sense. Wild. I didn't know where it came from, but that makes sense. So I must be able to go back now and see that it's not there. I haven't had cause to.
They do such a great job at that.
There's probably a good drop up there somewhere. I should totally go back. Well, that might happen tonight. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So anyway, where was I?
The lords, the gods.
Oh, and how I feel differently from 40 to 141.
Oh, yeah.
So what it gives me is options for, do I want to go with like a really crazy amount of death dealing damage with the heaviest hammer I have with basically no armor or fairly low armor? Because I've put a lot at this point into endurance so that I have options for armor. Because what I discovered is it takes a quarter of your equipment load. So it's like how heavy are the stuff you're carrying versus your equipment load stat to be able to kind of roll freely. I would say, the best
with no
weird flop, no weird like slowdowns, and so probably more iframes and stuff like that. So it's like you feel really nimble, and I do like feeling really nimble. So the choices I'm making are typically like, okay, I'm going to use a shield and one of these two, the mace or the club, depending on what I'm fighting, and then a bunch of armor. Versus, you know what? Forget the armor. I'll go naked and I'll just carry this gigantic hammer and maybe wear a helmet or something like that. I have it, sometimes I'm like, yeah, a little fire, resistance would be good here. A little more poise would be good. So I might wear one thing, and then I'll choose my ring, my additional ring, because I always use Hobble's ring to increase my equipment load. So those are my choices. Like that's basically what I've been doing. I've put so much into strength and into endurance at this point. They're both like in the 50s or 60 or something like that. I've abandoned faith a long time ago. I've lost my faith, I guess. And yeah, definitely ties into some of the things I did this week. So yeah. It's been good because when I go into those boss fights, the really hard ones, some of these ones I'm finding at the end of the game beyond these doors that you can't get through, these mist doors. I'm finding fights where I'm like, okay, what do I want to do here? Like, I've gone in, I've died a couple times. What's a strategy I should employ here? And it's literally making me think through, okay, what do I want? Based on what I have, what do I want to do here? And now I have more options there. I know what one of the other Lord Souls bosses is. I fought through his death skullops to get to him, and then he killed me, and I had to figure out about curses, and I haven't had a chance to apply that knowledge, but I will. There's been a lot of learning in those many, many hours, as well as uncovering a lot of mysteries, such as the Painted World and getting back to the Asylum. It's been a journey.
Jeez, it sounds like it. That's wow. Yeah, so from a difficulty perspective, it doesn't sound like it's not like a traditional RPG sense of like if you just grind and power level, for instance, like in JRPG or something, that you're going to be able to just own anything that you find by being such a high level. It just gives you, like you said, more options.
Only the respawning ones, right? I mean, a lot of
that's fodder. The fodder you don't. Yeah, that's
the fodder.
Nothing.
But even there, there's this sequence where I'd fight these two giants who had spell casting ability, and this one archer, and that was my loop. It was 7,300 souls. I could do it 3 times in 4 minutes. I know this because I steeped my coffee for 4 minutes, and while the coffee was steeping, I did 3 runs.
Oh, man. Holy cow.
So I knew down to the second, it takes me 1 minute and 20 seconds to do this run to get 7,300 souls. And when it takes you 175,000 souls to level up, you care how much time it's going to take to get you 7,300 souls. So, yeah. I've done that one run a lot of times, and now unfortunately it's lost to me forever.
Oh, really interesting.
Because I'm a bad person.
Oh yeah. So are you going to talk about that, or are you not going to talk about? What's the deal?
I mean, I think I have to, and the reason is I've never felt this bad about something I've done in a game before.
Never, nothing this bad ever.
Nothing.
Jeez.
Nothing. Because this cuts to like my choices, me as a person.
Oh, okay. This isn't like a. This isn't like a.
This isn't like so in God of.
This isn't.
Yeah, like I don't even remember any of those choices. Like for me, like none of them really.
Did you save Rex or did you kill Rex?
I did save Rex, I believe. Yes, yeah, because he was in 2 and 3 for me. I played that on a different platform. No, I did save him.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my.
Yeah, I do remember that, and I let the weird hive mind thing go.
Yeah,
those are 2 things I can remember.
Yeah. Okay.
I can remember. So yeah, then there's the one that's a false choice, and it forces you. The other person dies, and you're like, "Damn it!"
Yeah, With
I got stuck with the guy. Ugh. Anyway.
Yeah.
So there's. I guess I can remember 3 of those. But yeah, a lot of this is a game I should probably replay at some point. The trilogy's on Game Pass, so I could just play it on PC. Anyway, yeah. So the reason why, and the other thing was the other thing I've likened it to is in God of War. That there's that thing where you have to put a guy into like the flames that shoot up, and you have to burn him to death, and it's really miserable. But it's so manipulated. Like you have to do this.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's a thing that I didn't have to do. My curiosity got the better of me of like, I think I figured out a thing. And I didn't stop to think, yeah, but what are the consequences of doing that thing? And they weren't good. They weren't good consequences. And I wasn't happy about it. And then something even worse happened. So, in Anor Londo, you go to Anor Londo, you'll get there eventually, Tim.
Is it a city? What is Anor Londo?
It is a city.
And there are pedestrians there?
It is a city. There's not people walking around. It is similar to everywhere else in that there's monsters and, respawning and everything it wants to kill you and etc. Okay. There's also a blacksmith up there. You might need him to ascend some of these soul weapons to like Quelaag's Fury Sword and the Hammer of Smaug and all that stuff. Anyway, there's also a really, really tough boss fight at the end of it, which leads to this chamber where you meet, I mentioned this previously, where you meet this goddess Gwyndolin, or Gwynever rather, who is the daughter of Lord Gwyn, who you've probably heard a little bit about in the serpent, in the item descriptions, and the serpent mentioned him as well. And I have a feeling like Gwyn might be ultimately at the bottom of all this. Anyway, I had mentioned previously that in the item descriptions, there's one that mentions how Gwynever married some giant and left Anor Londo. But I'm like, but I've met her. Like,
yeah. You thought something was up. I saw her.
And I thought something was up. But I don't have any ranged weapons. You can't get to her. Well, somewhere along the way, I picked up lightning, like thrown lightning as a miracle. I can throw like 10 lightning spears, basically. And at some point I went, oh, well, now I have a ranged weapon. Like now I can throw this lightning.
Oh, no.
I think I picked it up from Solaire, and he's got this covenant, and the Sun Covenant or whatever. And I think I got it from that when I offered a sunlight medal at the Sun Altar. That's a whole nother thing, Tim. I don't know if you'll get there. Let's just say I had to run through the fire to get to that particular bonfire. But anyway, and this was just kind of percolating in the background because the other thing I had read was that Lord Gwyndolin, that's why I keep getting them confused, is the only god left in Anor Londo, which again, I'm like,
oh no.
Well, if that's true, I don't understand it because I've met the other one that you're saying is gone. And so anyway, you can sort of see where this is going. I had met her. I'd spent tons of time in her building. I would often fast travel to the bonfire right outside where you see her, speak to her. She has a covenant that you can join, which I can't join anymore because, of course, I went up and I was like, well, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this, and I threw a lightning bolt into her face.
Hey, you monster! That's all it took.
That's all it took.
Wow.
It revealed her to be an illusion, and Lord Gwyndolin himself spoke to me, not directly, just like in the ether or whatever. And Anor Londo, which had been this bright, I mean, sure, monsters everywhere or whatever, but this bright city, and there was this really cool firekeeper on, the first bonfire you get to there. It was really nice. You talk to her all the time. She's always saying nice things. And it all just, everything went dark. And he literally said it, you've brought twilight to Anor Londo. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm a monster. Like, I felt so awful.
You're like, you're like those fools.
I've literally been feeling this all day. I've been feeling this all day of just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like, I was so curious and I felt so clever. And my cleverness was my undoing, and the undoing of Anor Londo.
They're gonna write item descriptions about what you did.
There are. They're gonna. Well, and luckily my name in the game is Timmy, so I have that at least going for me.
Great.
Timmy brought the twilight to Anor Londo.
It's appropriate.
And it's the worst part of it is like literally before this, I had a boss that it was like, who was like, you could just go, like we don't have to fight. And I just went. I was like, you know what? We don't have to fight. And because I felt sort of bad for this boss, was also a lovely woman, although albeit with a tail.
Wait, why did she say that? That you could just
So go? I went up. I kept approaching. Eventually, a talk indicator came up, and I could just hit X to talk. And she basically says, you could just leave. You could just leave me here.
But why did she say that? Because you killed the other one, or?
No, this was before all this stuff happened. No, just I was in this place. I was in her world, let's say, and I had figured out how to get there from this object I had found at the asylum. and a clue that was in the item description. And I was like, aha, okay, cool. I know where I think this goes. But there was something about the item description where I was like, I kind of felt badly for the person whose object this was. I'm being so vague. Because if you do figure it, it's a cool thing to figure out. And so I had this like empathy for this boss. And I'm not just in it for the souls, man. You know, I like the, you know.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I did not expect like, but I didn't know like maybe Gwyndolin is not good. Like, so
yeah,
you know what's going on.
You tell yourself that at night. That's to make yourself sleep.
It's what I'm going to have to. But at the time, I was like, well, I don't know what's going on with that guy, but clearly I'm being lied to, and I'm not happy about it. But you know, maybe the lie was better. Maybe I should have taken the other pill. I don't remember. I've seen that movie once. So I had literally just come from being, you know, generous and not attacking somebody. And then not only did I, you know, dispel this illusion, but as I was leaving, I was attacked by this woman in armor.
Oh no.
On my way out, and I defended myself. Like, I mean, what am I going to do? And it turns out it was the firekeeper.
Oh, no.
From the bonfire there, and now I have that firekeeper soul, and that's the last thing I did today because I really can't face the game right now.
You're the murderer of the firekeeper now.
I am the murderer of a firekeeper, yes. Not that one, not the one whose soul we got before, because that's the one that's by Firelink.
Yeah.
That's why Firelink has gone out, but that means the fire has gone out in Anor Londo as well. Wow.
Well, what could you have done with the one that attacked you, or did she attack you because you?
She attacked me because I killed.
Yeah.
Because I brought the twilight to Anor Londo. That's why she attacked me. Wow. And she said something like, "This one is going to be a problem," or something along those lines, or "This one is trouble," maybe something like that. Referring to me as she died. I didn't feel any better about that. And I didn't realize in the moment that was, I don't know what I could have done about it. I maybe could have run past her or something, but she still wouldn't have been at that flame probably still would go out.
Yeah, right. You could, or
because she wouldn't be there keeping it, right? You know, and so I don't know.
Yeah, where would she have gone? If she had killed you, then maybe you would have. Where would you have gone to?
Yeah, there's two bonfires in Anor Londo, and so I mean, which is good. You need to be able to get around. You need to be able to get there quickly because there's one of the yellow gates is up there, and it would be painful to have to go through Sen's Fortress every time. But I mean, I guess that would be the penalty for a murderer such as I.
Yeah, I guess you're going to see now. Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, technically, I didn't kill, Gwynever. Because
an illusion.
She's not here. Yeah, she was just an illusion. But
who put the illusion up?
Gwyndolin. That's who spoke to me. He's like, "You destroyed the light of the image of the goddess," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, well, I didn't know that that's what I was doing."
Come on, you threw a lightning bolt at somebody. Regardless of what it ended up being,
yes,
that was your decision.
I will say, I really thought about it. I was like, I mean, it was like this thing that I had thought about for a long time. Like all weekend, I had figured this out a long time ago. Like, this is the thing I could probably do. Like 20 hours ago, I probably figured this out. And I kind of left it because I was like, okay, I have some other mysteries I'm curious about. Because, I mean, that's one of the things about games is like you want to uncover the mysteries, right? It's like, what have the developers left for us there? So in a sense, I'm still being manipulated, but in a way that I feel way worse because it's definitely taking advantage of my curiosity and my cleverness, and making me feel bad about that.
Yeah.
So which is a thing that a game has never made me do and feel like it was me. I've never felt that way about a game before, where it's like, God dang it, why couldn't you just leave well enough alone? So yeah.
Well, it's like
I look at it, it tastes like steak. I'm going to enjoy the steak is what I should have said. And instead, here I am.
Well, and I wonder, I mean, like the thing, I mean, this is a stating the obvious, I guess, but the thing about this game and these games is like, because of their opacity, And there are various decisions that, like, it's not decisions like in the Mass Effect, like I snarkily brought up Mass Effect, but that is the very, very like clear and in your face usability wise how decisions are tracked, right? It's like, okay, right. There's a flowchart someplace that's based on.
Do you want to be a renegade or a paragon?
Exactly. Right? There's a chart for it. I mean, a UI for it, and there's a little sliding scale, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, okay, very plain. And here it's like they just let you do stuff, and then stuff happens because of the stuff you did, but it's not like they tell you anything about it, and you kind of piece it together. So it's like it's much more your decision at that point than it is them offering you choices, binary choices. It's and so it's just such a different approach. Like I'm trying to think of another. I feel like there's another kind of genre of game that's on the tip of my tongue where it's very gray and like there aren't really I mean you can't where it's like it's all false choices and it's just like they want you to feel like you're making decisions and so therefore they want to pull on your heartstrings on something.
I mean The Walking Dead is that way, for example.
Yeah, right.
I mean they're I mean
you see
there
the
are some
chart.
Choices. But yeah, you definitely and there's a lot of manipulation there, so-and-so will remember this and, whatever that is there to like make you feel like there's an underscore under what you just did.
Yeah, it's more heavy-handed.
But in the end, like, you're still going to the same place. You're still going to end up in the same place.
What's his name's going to die?
That story. Yeah. Yes, no matter what. And you're going to have the heartbreaking Clem will remember that, and you're just like, oh my god, and it's like it feels very manipulative. Although I had it's a funny thing that when I played that game, I got to a place where I made choices very carefully and specifically, and then the game bugged and just like made a different choice for me when the next chapter started, and I was like, what? But that's not what I chose. And that really broke it for me in some ways. It was the last chapter, so it kind of was going to end where it was going to end anyway. But it was like, oh, but I really worked hard to not go it alone or whatever it was that was the choice, I think. And I wanted to, have these people around me. Still good. I mean, good storytelling and well done. Just unfortunate. Weird save game bug or something. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, it's like, I just like, it's not the same thing, but I still feel like the vagueness of the world of Eco and Shadow of the Colossus are similar to me in that, there's so little told to you that in those games, they don't give you choices about things, but you get a sense that it's like, there's a much more going on. And so, in the case you're talking about here is, I guess I just, long story short for me, I didn't expect that from this game. You always, at least for me, I always just hear about sort of the gameplay aspect of it, right? And I've heard about the lore embedded in item descriptions and all sorts of, but for me as a developer, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's kind of, it's cool and mysterious, but there's also a production reality to that. It's like, yeah, okay, well, that was what they could do, and they had a good time doing that stuff. But now you're like, well, they actually put a lot of work into these things that some people will never see because they didn't make a decision. Like, I assume if you don't kill this illusion, that you'll never see this whole other state, and that's just a whole nother approach where those moments of discovery are way different than a Mass Effect. Like, oh, what happens if you kill Rex? It's like, oh,
yeah, right. Yeah, you can literally just trace through the flowchart differently every time you play if you want in a Mass Effect game. Yeah, because exactly. Here's signpost. Here's the thing. Here comes a big choice. Be careful if you make sure you do it. Which I said.
Oh, and the finality of it too. I mean, you don't have a save game in this game, so you.
Correct.
You can't do anything.
Yeah, I can't even go back. Yeah, I'm done. Yeah. Immediately after it happened, I wanted to go back. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. That's big.
And like I said, I haven't played since that happened. I had time this evening and I was like, yeah, I need some more time.
Wow. That's
I still
cool.
want to get back into it because I enjoy it. I do enjoy it so much, and I'm going to finish. Right. I mean, I'm going to push through my momentary ill feelings, which are mostly about myself. I mean, it's just self-loathing and self-hatred, but that's nothing new. So, I'm just gonna, I don't have, I think at this point I have no more personal goals that I've set for myself. There's one that I had set for myself that is now moot because those creatures are no longer available to me because they were in Anor Londo, and Anor Londo has changed.
Wow.
So, yeah, what I want to do before I talk about my personal goals and sort of what that's been like and just the goals I had recently, I'd like you to tell me a little bit about the sunnier side of the street, which is what you've been playing. Just give me, some of Tim's story, and also let people know where you've been.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously leagues behind you still, but let's see. So I had gone down after the second bell for me. I'd backtracked because I felt like I had missed the catacombs. So I spent a lot of time in the catacombs. We talked about that some last time, but I did finally finish, and I was able to kill Pinwheel on the first try. And then I went down to the Tomb of the Giants and basically feel like I kind of hit a wall there. I had the lantern, but I was like, I don't know. It feels like I'm really not supposed to be here. It's a little too punishing when I get hit. And then of course
it is brutal there.
Yeah. And I found the paladins at the base in the pit, and which was a great, I mean, you described the moment yourself as well. And it sounded like it was a cool moment for you, but it was a really cool moment because, so I knew that they were down there someplace, and then you meet that one NPC who is like a cleric-hater or something. And I said, oh yeah, I'm a cleric. And then he pushed me into the pit. Yeah. But then after
Patches, dang that Patches.
Yeah, does he come back? I assume, or I don't know.
So I made it out of there, and I didn't die. Getting past the paladins and all that stuff, I went all the way back around to him, and he was like, "You? How are you still alive?" or something like that. And then I don't remember what happened. I feel like I jumped down to the bonfire. And then when I came back, I don't know if he had jumped off. I feel like I missed something with him. It didn't feel like, I feel like I think I got his drop. Like, I think he dropped something when I picked it up. I have no idea what it was. It was probably some, outfit or something. And he's gone. Like I have no idea.
Yeah,
he's not there anymore. He's not down below. At the time it felt like I janked it somehow. Like maybe I even fell off a cliff, and so I had to I got to him, started the conversation. He might have attacked me, and maybe I backed off a cliff or something weird like that. Like it was strange. Like I didn't really make notes about it at the time because I was like, well, that was all weird. But he did really react when I showed up again. Like, yeah, wait a minute, I just kicked you down the hole. How are you here?
Yeah.
And that was a neat moment. And then it didn't pay off because something, I don't know what happened at that point. I definitely felt that was one case where I was like, this feels like they didn't try this thing, or they did find it, but they just made a minimal solve of it. Like we got to close this bug so we can ship. He drops his stuff here and you just get it. Is what it felt like. Yeah. So, which I totally respect. I mean, that's fine. You gotta get him out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, I mean, having those paladins that have been, hollowed, turned hollow or whatever, come out of the darkness at me, and just in a very aggressive manner. When the last time I talked to them, they were, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, young clerics who were going to go down and escort the priestess or whatever. And so that was it was just a spooky, scary moment because of the darkness and stuff. Anyway, after they killed me, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to go back up. I feel like I made some progress. The other thing, so I assume when you go down to the Tomb of Giants, you see some of the lava down there. And I'm assuming that must shortcut back to the demon ruins or whatever. Does it continue on that way? Because it seems like they're signposting that some, and in one of the coolest locations still in my mind from a scale perspective is in the Demon Ruins, where there's that big bell. I don't know what it is, but it's a huge architectural element that's this big round building sort of underground.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Like, I've been down past that.
So does Tomb of Giants output someplace?
It does. There's a door, a yellow mist door, gold mist door that you can't go through.
Oh, that's what. So it doesn't actually shortcut back to anything.
Well, I haven't gone far enough into that to know.
Oh, okay. Because it looks
I dipped my toe in there. It is better lit once you get to that part, so you can actually see. There are some. Oh man, there is a creepy baby skeletons there that are just the worst. Oh
man, this game's got everything.
It just keeps going, Tim.
Baby skeletons, yeah.
Every time I think like, okay, I must have seen basically everything now. It's like, yeah, you really haven't, you know?
Yeah, that's insane. So I did that, and then I went, okay, well, now that I have senses open, I'll go do that. So I did climb up that quite a bit. I fooled with the rocks or the boulders and found the guy. Is that Sen? Is Sen the guy with the helmet? Anyway, I didn't resolve his, because he's now stuck again. So I didn't finish that. And basically at that point, I was like, I think before I finish Sens, I want to go back and look at New Londo ruins, because I feel like that was something that was accessible to me, quite a while ago. So that's kind of my mentality, is like, well, before I go to where I think I know I'm supposed to go,
mine too, a lot.
I'm going to go back to some place that's probably more of like someplace I should go for leveling or something, or to get gear. So yeah, so then I was, I'm dealing with ghosts there, and not doing great. My leveled up dagger does quite a bit of damage to them, but I have to use that dagger, so I need that, that resource to. I did find the ghost dagger, but it doesn't do enough damage for my liking, so I'm not using it. So gotcha. I'm kind of trying to manage. So nothing too. Nothing as exciting as
I have really high vitality now as well. So it's like, I'm going back there. I have to go back there. I think there's another Lord soul somewhere in there from the original description I was given 50 hours ago about where I need to go. I think I have to go there.
Is there a boss there that you got?
There, I have not found it. I went in there and I got to a point where it's like, well, I don't know what to do, but I don't think I had yet learned about the jumping that I told you about, and there's sort of a quick tap dive roll sort of thing too, which I guess I knew about. I guess that's how I was getting to places before, but I didn't know about the running jump, and so I would go back in there and try that.
Fool around,
so there's I just need to go back and explore that place more. I felt like because I know there is a mist door there, like you can see it reflected in the water at one point, which looks like a rendering bug on the PS3. So you may not see it because it looks like a rendering bug.
Yeah, interesting.
Like it's reflecting something in the world that you shouldn't be able to see from where you are. Like it seems like it's way too far away from where the gate is for me to be able to see it.
It's like a sorting or a clipping bug or something.
Yeah, it looks like it does. It looks exactly like something like that. Just like some weird quirk of the rendering engine that they just were like, well.
Yeah, I do see something from afar, and I thought it was a waterfall, but maybe it is a door.
It could be the reflected, mist door.
Yeah. So, but at one point you're saying you saw a golden door there, so there's a golden door.
No, I didn't see a golden one there. I think
from a lore perspective that they've told you.
Yeah, from a lore perspective, I suspect there's one there, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. So I don't know if I'm supposed to go here, but because it's accessible and it's like off of the main hub, I feel like I don't know. Yeah, Firelink is the main hub. Yeah. Off of Firelink is like, well, they've accessed it. The guy, we talked about the guy that is from the original guy in Firelink who now is hollowed, and he shows up there and you kill him. So it's like, seems like a progression there. The other way that I try to sort of judge, which I don't know if is a good idea in these kinds of games, because again, I don't really kind of fully grok them enough. But if I go back to a place that was hard before and I find it fairly okay to take down the enemies, like fairly easy if I'm careful, then I feel like, okay, I probably should be here. It's okay to be here. Like on the flip side, I went to the Valley of the Drakes to dabble there, and I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for this, So that's kind of why New Londo.
So there's an undead dragon in the Valley of the Drakes that you can get to by going the back way from New Londo, and it spews out toxins. And I've run into another one of those in another location, at the place where I spared the boss, and I beat it there, and I felt really, really good. And I'm like, well, now I have to go back to the Valley of the Drakes and do that. The things I have left to do that I want to do are, I want to explore the Valley of the Drakes because I feel like I've barely touched that. And it feels like there's a place to go there across a bridge. Like, I feel like there's something there. So I want to do it. That's one thing.
Yeah, if you enter from the basin.
If you enter on the elevator.
Yeah. Or I guess it's the elevator. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the basin. There's a basin goes to an elevator.
Like a keep or something.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, there's got to be something cool in there. So I want to do that. I've not even tried to go there.
Oh, wow.
Because I always get killed by the drakes there, but I'm probably in better shape now. 2 is that red dragon I still want to kill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. Of course. Doesn't everyone?
I mean, yeah.
It's the first dragon. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to take that thing down. I do want to take down the undead dragon that's also in Valley of the Drakes. Just because now I feel like, oh, maybe I could do it now, and it's killed me a few times. Even though I already got its treasure that was out in front of it, I'm just like, dang it, I want to do it. And let's see. So those I think are the 3. Oh, and New Londo, right, which is the one where I feel like I haven't done enough. Like I need to re-explore it based on new player skills that I didn't realize, and also some other things I'd like to try. So
the interesting thing about New Londo, which is obvious and you've probably already identified, but it's another example, like the thing with the skeletons we talked about last time, where you can't kill them unless, at least in my case, you can't kill them unless you kill the necromancers. Kind of like that's an emergent thing. They don't tell you. You have to figure it out. So it's using simple systems to repackage things with new rules, where it's like, I have to do something different.
Recontextualize.
So, recontextualize. And so I had to play that section differently by rushing past them to find the necromancer, which you don't have to do normally, right? And in fact, you don't want to do usually. You want to kill as you go, sort of. At least that's because I'm so fragile. I need to make sure I'm careful. But then with the ghosts, it's like level design completely changes because they just go through walls and attack you through walls. So it's like, well, now I can't rely on that anymore. So you have to think differently about how you attack them. Sometimes you can't even see them. So it's like a whole different, so it's...
Oh, yeah, there's ones that reach up through the ground.
Yeah, totally.
Worst.
Yep. And so you kind of need to memorize that, and you can still cheese them a little bit.
You can kill them a different way. You can get to where they are to avoid that.
Yeah, right. But it's, it's just... It's just, they're good examples of clever sort of economical ways to get some interesting, mechanics out of enemies, from not it's not like it's easy work, but it's like not having to rethink a whole thing. It's like, what if
I found another funny weird quirk just today. So you found those rare rings of, I forget what they're called, but where you don't lose your stuff.
I've only found one, but yeah.
Okay, I found a couple of those, and then I found one that wasn't rare. It was just a ring of whatever. Same thing, name the same thing, except it wasn't rare. So of course that made me go, okay, what's the difference then? And the rare ring actually will clear your curse status. So if you're cursed and you die wearing the rare ring, it will clear your cursedness. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, really?
Wow.
Like, that is so weird. I was just like, that's...
But you've burned it at that point, right?
Yeah, you'll have burned it. You'll have kept the souls. I mean, I told you there's a boss that does curse.
Yeah.
Luckily,
yeah.
I figured out how to build up curse resistance because I was like, there's this entry, but I don't know how to do it. And then I figured out how to do it. So that's a thing too. I mean, it's just, there's so many, like, they have all these numbers on that stat page, and they found a way to make all of those things matter in one area or one fight or one whatever. And there's a mechanic you need to often just figure out. Like, they don't tell you how to make this number go up. Some of those, and so you're just like, well, how do I, I stumbled upon the curse thing, which is if you have, I texted you.
It's humanity, you said, I thought. If
you have humanity in the bubble, I believe.
Yeah.
And that bubble, was what it does. Yeah. Not like...
Yeah,
because you can only be unhollowed once. So, you get it's putting it in that.
Camping.
So it's having found humanity. I mean, that's another thing I went and did. I went and farmed rats for like an hour.
I did too. Yeah. Because
so that I would have 30 humanity so that I have a ring that increases drops. So it's like, well, I'm just running back and forth to these dudes, killing all three of them, hoping that one of them drops every now and again, and building up until I have 20 or 30 so that I can kindle wherever I go. That's basically why I did it.
Oh, you're doing the ones on the bridge?
The ones from the bridge. Yeah. There's a bonfire near there that you haven't gotten to yet. So.
Oh, that's probably the fastest one. Yeah. I was doing the one in the lower.
Oh, that one in the sewer?
In the sewer, yeah. Because there's like 6 of them or 7.
Yeah, that's a good place. I didn't think about doing that. But yeah, that's a good place to do it for sure.
It's not that hard to get to.
Yeah. You could come at it from either direction. It's about the same amount of time. So yeah, that one's not terrible. Didn't think of that.
But I don't have the bonfire you were using. I assume it's the one behind the dragon.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So you can get to those 3 really fast, climb the ladder, go do it again. In a very short period of time, especially when you're level 120 through 60 or whatever. It's just like, and there's no threat. I mean, they're poisoning me, and I'm like, okay, go crazy. Like, my health is not going to run down before I get back there. I don't have to use any resources to deal with this. So
it's wild. Wow. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, and I have. And then the other main thing I did. So the Black Knight we were talking about last time, that's at the bottom of the catacombs, before you get to Pinwheel down there.
That guy.
That you fall into. So he eventually. So I cheesed him some so I could get away from him, because I forget if he sees you, he still can jump down into the main cavern. And I thought if I just avoid his room, he wouldn't get to me. But I'm like, and then he just shows up behind me, and I'm like, wah.
Yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened to me.
So
that's when I told you he killed me. It's because, so you know how you go down that second ladder?
Yeah.
And you go around, there's the 2 skeletons with the archers.
Yeah.
And then there's the exit into the cavern to the left.
Yeah.
I killed those 2 skeletons, went back, turned into that hallway, and he was standing right there.
Yeah.
And just like whacked me with the axe. Yeah. And I was like,
yeah, it's pretty scary. You? Yeah. But what happened was I killed him. I was like, oh, you, nice. And backstab, man, it is just, it's obviously my build. So I know I'm supposed to be doing it, I think, but you know, if I'm good at it, if I'm good at it and I get lucky, it's like, they don't have a chance. And so that's what I did. I was like, that was my first one. I was like, I just killed a Black Knight.
Oh, okay. That's how I killed the one at the base of the tower.
Right.
Back in Undeadburg.
Right.
Behind him.
And I didn't, but I really hadn't had the guts, to deal with any of them. So once I killed him. I
killed like 8 of them now. Yeah.
Well, but once I killed him, I was like, oh, okay. Well, then
I can do this now.
I can do this now. And so I literally, all the ones that I had found, the one in the basin, the one in the tower, the one at the top of the tower, the one at the bottom of the tower, the one the shillelagh guy, who I think has a name because he drops a ring.
That's Howl, I think. That's Howl's ring.
Yeah.
That's one that increases your equip load that I wear all the time.
Okay, yeah. So I have that. So I just went, I just systematically slaughtered all the Black Knights because I was like, oh, you guys are going down. And Howl obviously was the hardest, but I did eventually get him. And, it's like two and a half hits basically to take him down if I'm careful. So he was still tough because he can kill me in almost one hit. So it's definitely tricky, but it was it felt good because, I mean, this is an obvious thing, but it's with this game, it's like, cause those are infamous. Black Knights I know are infamous. And I came into the game with that fear and then avoided them, for 40 hours or whatever. And then finally kind of killed one out of self-defense. And then the fact that I turned the tides on them, and basically okay, no, I'm going to now go kill all of you. It felt really good. It felt like a major
It also opens pathways for you.
Yeah, right. You find the elevator, and other things. Yeah. So it's...
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it connects you there. You can get back to Undeadburg easily if you want to. You might need to because there's that lady who sells the whatever, the purge stone and the moss. She sells a humanity too. Hilariously,
she does. Yeah.
Hilariously, she sells a humanity. And then when you buy that humanity, she just had the one.
Oh, really? Oh, that jerk.
Yeah.
That jerk.
There was a point at which I was like, oh, this is cool. I'll go farm some souls and then go buy a bunch of humanity. And that's how I ended up farming rats when I found I could only buy one.
Oh, that's clever. That's clever. Yeah, because
very funny.
I haven't. That's a little bit rich for me, so I haven't bought that yet. But all of her stuff.
Yeah, when you're spending 160,000 souls on a level, 5,000 just doesn't seem like that much.
No.
So, so that's kind of a goal that you set for yourself. That was one of the other topics I had, is just once I've gotten to this point where it's like, okay, I could just go try to finish the game on each of the bosses, but I've had these things I've been curious about, or these things that I've wanted to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so here are these I don't know, 5 or 6 goals that I recently had for myself. One, get endurance high enough that I can roll okay in black iron armor set, which was an armor set I was trying to use. And I figured out that if I use the ring, Howl's ring, and the and high endurance, I could roll around in that thing with my mace and a shield, which was okay. That was cool. And then I was like, okay, but what if I could get the endurance high enough that I could roll okay with the hammer, Smile's hammer? I was like, that would be cool. Two-handed, of course, because I wasn't strong enough to wield it one-handed, but I could roll around with it, with 2 hands, and that would be cool. And that cut the length of time on that loop down to that minute 20 seconds or whatever. So that was cool when I finally did that. Then I was like, okay, now I want to get my strength high enough that I can wield it one-handed.
Oh, man.
That hasn't been beneficial, honestly. I like it better two-handed because I can use it to defend, because I often can't afford to also carry a shield.
Right.
So it's like, I'm using it two-handed anyway. So that was kind of a wasted bunch of levels, but it was fun to do. And I do more damage, of course, with it. Figure out how to use Quelaag's Soul, which I did. It's curved. I think you have to take a curved sword up to +10, which is annoying. So to take these things up to +10, I got them to +5. I'm like, well, now the giant that's up in Anor Londo won't make them +6. I'm like, and it had been so long, I forgot that it's the other dude, the dwarf, that will take them from +5 to 6 as a modify or whatever. It's the first entry.
Depending on what you want to do with it. Yeah, you need
exactly. So I had totally forgotten that, and at some point it clicked. I'm like, anyway, so that took me a while to do. Then get Dex up so I can actually use Quelaag's Fury Sword. And like I said, I spent 20 levels on that anyway. And then I had one, this is the only one I didn't fulfill, which is I wanted to get the strength up so I could kill one of the giants from behind with one hit.
Wow.
I thought it was going to be when I did 725 points of damage in a swing, and it wasn't. I got to 725. I was like, oh man, it's probably like 750 then. And I was like,
that's a lot. Yeah.
This one. Yeah, and it was like 25 levels of strength. just to do this one thing. I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, it was still on my list, but now those things are gone because
you're a monster. Yeah.
So.
Wow. Consequences. #consequences. Yeah. That's what they say. Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah, I mean,
I'm
it's amazing.
To finish this week.
It's amazing that you can set so many. That it is the kind of game. Yeah. There isn't a quest log, right? Like usually setting goals for yourself is like, I'm going to look at the quest log and I'm going to do these things, and it's like handed to me on a silver platter. Here, it's like,
well, one of them was I had one that I didn't write down, which was figure out how to get that one treasure near Firelink that I didn't know how to get.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to figure out how to do that. And I finally figured it out. It took a lot of figuring out. And then it uncovered something even more. And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
And then that led to another thing. I mean, it just was like, and it was all just me like paying attention. There's another Black Knight over there. So that'll motivate you to get back to there.
Well, they use the glowing treasures they use so well. I mean, it's like it's old school Mario kind of mentality, right? Where it's like they put it someplace. And you can see it usually from far away, and you're like, "Huh? How do I get there?" And then it's just like, well, yeah. So I mean, sometimes you're like, "There's no way I could." Like, there's still a couple where I'm like, I have no idea how I would get that.
Yeah, so. I haven't been back to Blighttown, but at some point I will.
Oh yeah, there's that one in Blighttown. There's one in the bottom of the catacombs where I'm like, it's up on a ledge. I'm like,
oh yeah, I haven't figured out how to get to that one either.
Yeah.
There's a couple actually. There's a few in Catacombs. The problem with the Catacombs though is it's so dark.
Yeah.
That it would be really just like trial and error. There's actually one Catacombs. Oh, Catacombs. I was thinking Tomb of Giants. There's like 3 in the Tomb of Giants that I've seen, and I'm like, yeah, it's so dark. Like,
yeah, that place is a literal nightmare.
It's
like it's you see their eyes, the giant skeleton's eyes, and you're like, oh no, man, I don't know. And I have to use the lantern, and I'm like, I don't have a shield, so it's like
it's pretty brutal. I've had to go back there recently, and it was moving around in there. I was like, oh man, this is so hard. And then in the end, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go check out that thing in Anor Londo, and become a monster. So anyway. Yeah, so speaking of monsters, what do you say we turn to our mailbag?
Okay. Sure. That's a transition.
That is a transition. These were mails sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. We have a bit of time. We could probably get a few of them in, although many of them are long. So, and some of them have questions, so we will do our best. Let's hear it from you.
These are including, because we do all of them from last week? I guess we didn't.
No. This is picking up from last week.
Got it. Okay, so from Peter, subject Dark Souls, or how I learned to stop worrying and love dying. I remain impressed that while the internet has proven that there are people who can beat Dark Souls in 5 minutes using only a toothpick and lightly used sock, I'm generally... he's kidding there, right? I mean, that's I wouldn't be surprised if that's true, but
maybe
it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I'm generally impressed that after all this time, there is no real meta for how to trivialize the game. There are certainly ways to make the game harder or easier for yourself, but basically you can play however you want and it turns out just fine. I mean, okay, that's relative. Question. Many aspects of this game are intentionally hidden in such a way that I certainly would never have discovered them without the internet. I mean, like several whole areas. Oh, Peter, you cracked me up.
I think I just went to one. So
the NPC,
2, actually.
Yeah, right. The NPC quest lines likewise are so fragile that even when you do them right, the flags barely work. With most games, if you really want to delve into all its secrets, you can save at important spots or play New Game Plus, where you're overpowered enough that you can explore without being afraid. A boulder is going to ruin an hour of work. So the question is it reasonable from a developer standpoint in this technological age of internet communication to make systems so opaque that you are basically requiring any but the most devoted players to rely on outside resources to really get all of the meat off the bone?
Well, so thus far, I will say, Peter, thank you for your email. I have only checked one thing. And it's one thing that's been eating at me, and I had no luck figuring out what the heck it was all about. And it was called, I can't remember the term. It's a drop off of those things in Darkroot Basin with the two-headed snake things. They drop this thing called like the egg vermifuge or
Whoa, I didn't find one of those.
Yeah, so they dropped this weird. Let's see if I can find it. I wrote it down at one point because I was like, what a weird term that is. And I can't. It's not in my document, so I must have not actually written it down. I thought I did. Maybe it's in my actual notepad. Oh no, egg vermifuge. There we go. And the description is removes parasitic egg from body.
Wow.
And I'm like,
wow. That's something you haven't met yet.
And that's one thing that's been there, and it's been in that list for the longest time. And I've seen so much of the game now that I'm like, what is this? I'm like, I literally have no idea. So I looked it up and I watched a video. Tim, you know those weird dudes that have all the eggs growing all over them in the Demon Ruin?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So if you go up near one of those, and you're kind of near it, you're not defending yourself well, it might have one of those eggs burst open and attack you with a worm from inside the egg.
Oh, I fought those worms.
It might.
I fought those worms. Yeah.
No, not the ones that jump out.
Oh, if you kill one, it's
not the ones that appear. No, not the ones that appear when you kill it. If while it's still on in the eggs on the back of the thing,
wow,
this parasitic thing comes out and bites you, you might get infected with the parasitic egg. You know what happens when you get infected with the parasitic egg?
No, you die.
You now have an egg for a helmet. Actually, you now have an egg for a head.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Apparently, I would never have found this, so I'm glad I looked it up. Now I'm wondering what other things are like this that I'm not going to find, but I've made my peace with that. If you, and I forget the number, but if you feed some enormous number of souls, because now the parasite, get this, is eating half the souls you recover.
Oh man, where's this
going? Egg on your head.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if you feed it enough, and it's like if you feed it 100,000 or something, so you've also gotten 100,000 at that time. It's like you've deprived yourself of 100,000 that you've given this egg. It will basically hatch in the way that the other ones had hatched, but now it will emerge from your head and attack. You can use it to attack things.
You have a worm head that is
a worm in the egg on your head that is a weapon. But it's like, I don't think you can have another weapon that you're using while you do this, and it does like no damage. So it's the most useless thing as far as I can tell. Like, I didn't spend any time researching it further than that. Like, can you level the egg thing more? Like, I don't. Like, can that thing become really powerful? Maybe.
Wow, like, that's insane. That's insane.
So that's the one thing I've looked up, and I found a lot of stuff, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. But yeah. So my answer is yes, there is value in doing this in the age of the internet. I know a lot of people will look at it, but for me, as much as I feel bad and like a monster for doing it, I am glad that was not spoiled for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I am, and I feel bad for spoiling it for Tim, but I also know he's never going to get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gave you permission on that. So, but yeah, I came into the game and to Peter's question, like, the general sentiment with these games so far has been, oh, it's the age of the internet. So they did this on purpose to make people have to kind of band together to solve problems and figure it all out. I'm not so sure now that that's the case. True. I think they are trying to make a game where discovery is of the utmost importance to any player who's choosing to engage in the way that they intend you to engage. And sure, you can use the internet. I've only looked up one thing other than the thing you've given me. Like, you've definitely given me hints and clues on things, but I only looked up that necromancer thing because I was just like, I have 3 theories on how to kill these skeletons, but none of them are true. And definitely over time probably would have figured out the necromancer thing someday, but it would have taken a long time.
I will tell you another thing. This was something I figured out this week.
I mean, I'm also playing without messages, so that's
yeah, that's true. But one thing that I discovered this week, and this is how I ended up with that weird Q-tip helmet that's like 6 feet tall. If you come along like a corpse and you take the little drop off of its body, and it's a humanity, unhollow yourself. There's something there. That's why they did it. That's why there's a humanity just sitting out there on a body, is because that's a hint that there's something that can happen there.
Unless it's a rat.
Yeah, no, that's a drop from something you killed. No, this is like just something that's lying around in the world that was placed.
Oh, wow.
You know, like you get the souls, like the soul of the whatever, you know, the brave warrior and all those things. Yeah. So if you come across a corpse like that has just a humanity in it,
you should be a human.
Find a bonfire, come back to that spot unhollowed, because there's something there. For me, it was an invasion by. I don't think it was a real person, because it dropped an unusual item.
I'm hardly.
It dropped a number of unusual items. Well, so there were some items that it dropped. There's an item that it dropped on its corpse, but then there was a set which included that weird helmet. And I mean, I sent you the picture of the whole outfit that I got at the end of that level, I believe. Yeah. At the end of that area, I got this thing off of another another corpse sitting there. Like, I don't know if that would have been there, but it's named after this guy, and I killed him. So I assume there's some tie there. Like, it's his, like, Xanthus, whatever, something, you know. And so that made me go, oh, if I find a spare humanity just lying around, and I'm sure I've passed by this, and it took me this long, like I'd have to play again to find the other places where this would be true. There was a point where I was invaded by Kirk, and I thought for sure that was just some rando on the internet whose handle was Kirk. And now I'm like, oh no, that's the dude with the armor of thorns, which I've been reading about all these time on the loading screen. And I probably will never get that because I don't remember where that happened, but I did get invaded by Kirk. And I was like, oh, I bet if I killed him, I would have also gotten this cool armor, you know, which I wouldn't mind having. So
the concept of just being human or being unhollowed, you know, that they encourage that, but then there's the whole invasion thing can happen to you. So it's like, it's a very interesting, like,
I get invaded a lot when I'm human. So yeah, there's pluses and minuses to being online.
Yeah.
I did get invaded right before a boss fight, and I went through the mist door and they got sent away. So at least there's that. I didn't get I was unhollowed. I don't remember why I don't remember why I did that, because I ended up getting killed and losing it. I don't remember why I did that. But maybe it was a carryover from something else I was doing. I don't remember. So yeah,
but to Peter's question, I mean, it is. I have a new opinion of this whole thing. Yeah, I don't think it's about the internet. I think the internet has ruined a lot of things like this, you know. And
although, I mean, I think the internet allows for the asynchronous multiplayer stuff, which I do think it's for. Like, that's for people to communicate the things that they found, you know, is with the markings and the ghosts.
Yeah, that's fair. Oh well, it's the age old thing of you know. At least if we take the accessibility issue away for a second, which, you know, we shouldn't, but that's a whole nother kind of subtopic or separate topic for these games for sure. Cause they've taken a stance that in a certain way with sort of like, no, we're not going to tell you how to play this game. And et cetera. And it's on you if you're going to go look it up. That's not our problem, you know, if you spoil it for yourself. And so that's at least, I don't know if they've said that, but that's my new personal stance on it now that I've seen what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let me go to mine. I'm sorry, I'm just reorganizing some stuff here, so it's more towards the top of the file. Okay, I have, there are actually two emails here. They're both from Mystery Dip. So I'll just read them both together. One's more of a comment, and the other has more of a question. The first one is subject the knowledge from Mystery Dip. I know what Tim is saying, and I think he's right. That being said, it sounds like the bit at the end of Saturday morning cartoons where they attempt some morality to absolve themselves of the fact that they're essentially 30-minute toy commercials. I may have died 28 times, but I think I learned something.
Yeah, fair enough.
Regards, Mystery Dip. So that's one. The second email I'm putting together with it is also from Mystery Dip. Obviously, the subject is graphical fidelity. If video games ever near graphical parity with reality, do you think we will hit an uncanny valley not with faces and such, but with movement, physics, controls like this? And he puts a link in the show notes, and I've forgotten what it goes to, so we'll see if it's in the show notes this week. I always watch things to make sure that they are safe, so you can't sneak things in that way. Anyway, but I will put it in if it's appropriate. He says, I feel like even if there's technical ways to hide some of that, in the end, you still have a human controlling a player doing things they wouldn't have to in reality. For example, you don't run up to people and stare in their faces. Are video game tropes too entrenched at this point for people to adapt? Regards, Mystery Dip. So I imagine this is like ways in which controlled PCs behave in games that don't make any sense in the real world and thus appear super strange. Like your perspective might be weird, like he says, because you're right up in somebody's face and you're never like, it's uncomfortable to be that close, you know, et cetera. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, this has come up before. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but I've definitely had this discussion at work at some point. But I mean, the typical photorealism debate and uncanny valley debate that comes with it is, you know, largely just around the sort of artistic and rendering and, you know, the technical and artistic and animation to some degree, you know, performance capture, all that stuff area. And that makes sense to some degree. But I think to his point, I don't know if this is exactly what he's saying, but it's sort of related. The real uncanny valley that I think will never potentially kind of overcome unless we're making like a simulator in VR or something where you're really trying, everything is supposed to be simulated physics wise or control wise as real, like it's say a medical software or something, is that video games are inherently supposed to be something that is fun and playful in a way, you know, so there's always going to be some sort of mechanics or systems that are there because the game isn't I mean, in my opinion, games aren't there really to become real life. They are there for a different purpose. And as long as you're ever going to have, as long as you always have gameplay there, gameplay will never, like, I don't run around doing rolls through my house, you know, or like, you know,
I'm considering it, so
you know, I mean, it's just like the fun that you get from video games. Like, there's extreme sports, right? And there's like mountaineering, and there's adventure that people go on, but it's always based on real physics and real mechanics of the human body, right? And so I feel like the uncanny valley will eventually just become gameplay, you know, and that will never really change unless you're making like a simulation, like I said. So.
Yeah, when he described in this, you know, like I said, I'm sorry, I didn't get to this video and I forgot that there was a video embedded in here. But based on his description, you know, I am reminded of, and it's funny because I referred to it earlier in something I saw about the movie The Matrix. Somebody was describing to me what it's like to act for film. And they were using this scene where they're talking about the pills, Morpheus and Neo, and they're sitting in these chairs. And you see it on screen, and you think that looks perfectly normal and natural. And this person who was describing this to me, and I don't know, it might have been my friend Michael Abbott, the Brainy Gamer. He might have been talking about, I honestly can't remember. But was explaining that those two actors have to sit so unnaturally close to one another to make the shot work that you would be uncomfortable doing it, sitting next to another person as close as they actually are to make the shot work, especially with some of the the reverse shot of the conversation. Like they have to be right up in each other's faces, or the camera does in some cases. Well, there's like that reflection. I don't know if that was done with practical effect or with it looks practical, where it's reflecting his face in the lens of the glasses and stuff like that. It's like they have to be so perfectly close and in exactly such a weird spot that it's just, and we accept it. I mean, it looks real to us, right? Yeah. And it's totally not. And that's something most people don't think about. And we just accept it. We see it. We accept it. We move right past it. And it's just, I don't know. I don't think that there is an uncanny valley with that thing in some ways, because we're being tricked to believe it's real for other means, for artistic means. And I think that is something that we can probably get away with in games. If you're always up in in somebody's face, I still think we're going to feel like it's natural because we've seen movies where we're that close to somebody's face. Yeah. And it's just going to look normal to us, because of that. I think that's another thing that has happened with, I was going to say there's something like with sports games. I've kind of lost the thread on my thought there, but like that there's a similar uncanny valley in sports games
where they try to make it look like TV.
Exactly. Yeah, where they make it look unnaturally like television. Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going. And it's like, because that's our expectation of what sports are. Now, because that's how we perceive sports most of the time. And so the games have simulated not sports, but sports television. Yeah. And so they've changed they don't change the actual play of the game, but it does change the presentation because of how we're used to seeing that. So anyway, interesting. Not a lot of first person like football games out there. Because we wouldn't understand it. Like, unless you've actually done that, which very few of us have, certainly very few of us people who play games, it's not a thing that like would make any sense to you. Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time as an adult, I put on a catcher's helmet. I worn one as a kid and I've forgotten it entirely. I put one on, or maybe it was an ump thing. One of the just like, it's just the mask without the helmet. Usually you put like a hard shell over the back of your head, but you're not expecting to get hit. Yeah. And so it's just the front. Anyway, because you're supposed to be looking at the ball. Nothing should be hitting anywhere else. You're not turning your head. Anyway, I put one of those things on and I'm like, oh my God, how do people see out of this? Like, the perspective from behind, and it's just two bars, horizontally, and then a couple that hold it to the thing top and bottom. But it blocks so much of your view. You're like, how can they make any calls with these things on? Like, it's amazing to me. But, it does actually work and you actually can see. But it is so, when you first put it on, it's like, oh my God, if I wore this around, I'd walk into things. It's so obscuring, because it also frames your face because of the padding.
It's like a medieval helmet
feeling. Yeah, it's so weird. And again, unless you've actually had that experience, you would have no idea. Like, you think you can just see what you would be able to see in the video games, which is, oh, this is where the ball went. But it's not like that at all. So anyway,
that's how I'm able to backstab Black Knights.
There you go, because they can't see you.
Where'd he go?
Can you imagine putting on a helmet, an actual helmet like that? I've worn in an armory. I actually think it's closed now, but there used to be a place called the Armory in Massachusetts, and I don't think they had enough visitors to keep it open. It's been a decade, maybe almost two at this point. Like, kids were young, so maybe 15 years ago, and they had a few helmets you could actually put on. First of all, they're heavier than you expect. Yeah. They weren't full face masks, so you weren't, your eyes were obscured. They were just like top helmets, like caps. Yeah. But one of them had a bridge that came down your nose, and I was like, oh my God, this would be so uncomfortable to wear around into battle. And that was just with a piece of metal down my nose with padding. It was really quite something. So anyway, if the Armory is still around, I encourage anybody in Massachusetts to go to it, but I actually think it closed, sadly. Let's do one more. That should give us time to get you to your thing, to your streaming, and all that. That work for you?
Yeah. let's see. This one's a long one though, but let's see. You're talking about Dan.
Well, if it's long,
let's see.
That is pretty long. We can actually, maybe we should hold.
Do you have a shorter one?
I do have one that's not terrible. There's a question in it. This is from Johnny Pockets. Hey Johnny, the subject is the game design of Dark Souls. Good day, gentlemen, or good day. He's an Australian, I believe, living in Japan. I have been really enjoying your discussion on Dark Souls, a game I have never played but find really interesting. I wanted to make sure you guys get back to the topic you touched on in part 1, usability and difficulty. I was talking to a friend, let's call him Fozzie Bear, on this topic, and we framed the discussion around 3 topics. 1, accessibility, with a capital A. 2, usability. And 3, game design. For usability, we talked about the menu system and about battle tips in the latest game. Not so good. Okay, haven't played that one. For game design, we talked about how you can be 15 hours in the game and not yet understand a core mechanic, the bonfire in Tim's case. This seems like quote-unquote bad game design because of how integral it is to the game. Contrast this to the various combat moves you slowly learn as you play, and this seems like quote-unquote good game design, perhaps because it is more about increasing skill than a core game mechanic. Another example of quote-unquote good game design is how you can tell how strong a human character is in the game just by looking at the equipment they are carrying, according to my Fozzie Bear. I'm interested to hear your take on usability and difficulty now you have played the game. Thanks for all the great work, Best Pockets. So there you go. Johnny Pockets asks about your take, Tim, on usability and difficulty.
Yeah, so he's taking out accessibility. Then we're not.
Yes, yeah, he's setting that aside. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's because of our unique perspective on things, which is, I guess, of course, why we ask people to listen to this podcast. But I think as a developer, I don't. Like he mentioned the not understanding how the fires work as an example for me, and. I don't mind. I feel like I've become a bit of a purist in the sense of if this is what they want to do with their resources and they're choosing to make a game like this, I kind of whether it's successful or not, in this case, wildly successful, more the power to them, I don't think it's the player's prerogative to sort of say, oh, this is bad because I didn't understand it when I wanted to understand it. It's well, again, my new opinion, which I just said a few minutes ago, of the way that they're approaching things is not in a punishing sort of I'm going to stick it to the player kind of way and not tell them things to be jerks. It's actually the value of learning how something does work. There's a side of me that wishes that I hadn't looked up that necromancer thing, because if I had put 2 and 2 together and realized what it was, I would have been much happier. Even though I was very frustrated for probably at least an hour, maybe 2 hours of I cannot get rid of these skeletons, and so I kind of now, so that's an example of well, they didn't tell me this, that seems like it's bad. There were no tells at all about how these were related, or at least I didn't notice them. So I don't know. I've become okay with what he's talking about, basically, and it's their prerogative, and some games go heavy on this stuff and don't succeed, and that was their whatever about their balancing or the way that they approached it didn't quite click with people, and it just didn't work for them, and then in From Software's case, they found a sort of a unique recipe where people are okay with it, and of course, wild success.
Yeah. Yeah, and people, of course, defend to the death the choices that they've made. No. And it's okay. You can make different choices. It's still be okay. One of the things I think about in terms of accessibility is literally, is this thing accessible? Can I access it? I like to use the analogy of and this will sort of take a tack against difficulty. But let's say the plays of Shakespeare or some other deep literary work, right? That is a game that is accessible to a high school student or even a grade school student in many cases. There's maybe a slight language barrier. So maybe let's pick something, I don't know, like Ulysses or something like that by Joyce, right? It's accessible to them in the sense that they can read it. Like, they can read the words, like they can do the action that it requires to get the thing, but it's also difficult. It's impossibly difficult. Yeah. I still can't read Ulysses. And so accessibility for literature for people who have different abilities might be something like large print or braille or audio, or what have you, is an accessibility issue. Like, is it literally something I can get to? But difficulty is the other thing, is like, well, can I appreciate it? Do I have the things in me for this to be a rewarding experience for me, which is the difficulty part of that. Yeah. So that's actually the distinction I try to make, because I think that's a little easier to understand than because we kind of talk about accessibility, and often people think difficulty, and they're not the same thing. So anyway, that's how I've come to take it. It's literally, is this a thing that I can access for control? Controllers have been a huge thing, and Microsoft, your former employer, I remember talking to someone from there and saying, who worked in, I think, their accessibility unit, and saying, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, you've really moved games forward with the work you folks have done. And that's really, really important, and was a proud day, I think, for everybody in the industry when that controller was announced and the video was out there, and you're like, oh my God, everybody can use this. Like, or nearly many more people, I should say, can get to games now that they couldn't before. So that's the statement I wanted to say. Yeah, in terms of I mean, I'm totally with you. I mean, I think any artist should be able to make the art that they want and make that statement. And yeah, I mean, it's up to you if you can make it work as a product, right? And that's a separate issue, what concessions you're willing to make and all of that. They stuck this out for a long time. I bounced off Demon's Souls the first time I tried it, and the second time I was like, man, I could never play another one of these without making it a full-time job. And here we are.
Well, and the thing I want to clarify to the both of our points there too is, because you mentioned like fighting to the death for to defend From Software, which there is this sort of zealotry around their decisions that I do not condone that, because I think if somebody doesn't like the games and does feel like for them they aren't usable, from a usability standpoint enough for them, or too difficult or what have you, that's okay too. It doesn't mean that you have to, if somebody doesn't agree with how From Software does something, that's fine. It's like, you don't have to like David Cronenberg.
Perfectly valid.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, and it's not valid to harass people over that.
Yeah. They don't need, From Software doesn't need your help.
Clearly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be my point too. It's like, don't worry about it. They'll be fine. They don't need you out there standing them to convince the people who have a different opinion. Just let them have their opinion. It's fine. It's okay. Okay, let's thank you for the emails. We will get to Dan's in the future. We have a few more, so I wanted to make sure we get to at least a few.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, yeah.
We, of course, always love your reviews, and we'd like to get email, of course, at devgameclub@gmail.com. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com or on Twitter at devgameclub. We can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
You also Twitch at twitch.tv/Tim Longo Jr., and you are playing this very game.
Yep, it looks like new Londo ruins for me tonight, so we'll see. Of course, you'll be listening to this in the future, so that won't matter, but
you can always go back and watch the VOD and try to catch up with them next time.
That's true. You could. That's right. The VOD.
Are
we? So we're probably the next episode's our last episode, I'd say, right?
Might well be. I think we're getting to the point where there are diminishing returns. Yeah. I would like to try to finish it in that time. I believe I can.
I believe in you.
Yeah, I think I can do that. And then plus I don't have any D&D to prepare for this week because we're having a week off, so I actually have all the time in the world, just oozing with time. I did that and prepared D&D this week, and I still managed it. Right. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo, of course, is by Mark Garcia. Have fun being invaded by Dark Phantom Kirk this week, and good night.
Good night.